Hello, welcome back again. This is James Soriel from SQL Database for Beginners. Today we're going to continue with our care home database design and walkthrough that we did last time. In the last tutorial, we look at the requirements, what we need to build our database. So basically, we look at our entities and what is going to contain within our database. So just some of the requirement, we look at the service user, the multidisciplinary team, things like the activity or the activity types or the incident reports, and we look at various aspects of the data. Now, what we're going to do will be to look at the Microsoft Visio. Now I've decided I'm gonna do this from the scratch so that anyone who wants to learn how to use this application can understand the system as well. So this is Microsoft Visio. It's more or less like Microsoft Word, but it's just specifically for diagrams such as data model. If you want to do electric circuit, anything like that, you can use this um, Microsoft Visio for that. Although there are other forms of um, data model tools out there, but the tool is really not the most important thing when you're developing a data model. You can do it on a piece of paper, you can even do it on a notepad. Because I've done this several times, most of the time I don't even use a tool like this. I just write it on a notepad because I know what my primary keys and foreign keys are. But what we're going to look at here today, we're going to keep this data model simple. Now, we're not going to dig deep down into the attributes. So let me just show you again. So before you start, I always like to put my in landscape. So you go to design, orientation, and landscape, which is similar to what you do in Microsoft Word. Now, if you look at this left panel here, you'll see we have different thing, which is the entities, we have the attribute, and we have entities with attributes. So if we drop these entities only, what this shows us is this first one, which has the attributes and the data types, is just an added layer for you to insert your data types for each of the attribute name that you have. However, this doesn't have that, but I believe you can always right click and show attributes even if you don't want, if you want it at the later stage, or you can decide to hide the attribute by right clicking and selecting the table, and you'll be able to see what show attribute or hide attribute, and it will give you that. So what we're going to do, we're not going to focus on this which has the attribute and the data types, and also we're not going to focus so much on the attribute for now. We're going to focus on the entities and look at how they are related to each other. If we look at our slide here, we look at these are basically the entities. So we're going to look at how all these entities relate to each other within our diagram here. So our focus here will not be to create service user name, first name, last name, all those attributes. We're not going to do that in this video because there are so many attributes that we might not be able to cover for this video, and I want to keep this video as short as possible. So the very first entity we're going to look at will be the service user entity. Now, what I also like to do to start with, I like to format my diagram. Is just kind of an obsession just to make it easier, and I can just probably change the font. I'm obsessed with this font, Poppins. And I just kind of give it 10 or probably even give it 8 so that it doesn't becomes too big, and I'll just leave it at that. What I could also do is probably um, give the fill color for the tab for the top button. So I could probably just say black, and then I could look at the text and say the text is white. So now once we format all our tables properly, I could make this. Let's see if I can make this white. No, actually this um so yeah, we can just leave this at that now, and we have these entities here. So in this video again, just to um be clear, entity relationship diagram, ER model, data model, data schemas, um, all these terminologies, they just all mean the same thing. There is really no difference between any of them. They are the same thing. So different people might just prefer different naming convention. And just like we have it in SQL, some people say SQL. I just prefer to call it SQL, which is what I can read on the screen myself. So basically, we have the service user um, entity, and what I normally do is my entity name, I give it a capital letter, first letter capital letter underscore. If there is any second name, then underscore second name that also starts with capital letter. That is it. You can write it as capital letter all through without underscore, so you can write it like this, or you can just write small letter, but I would discourage you not to write it like this with a space, because if you do this in your database, then when you are querying your database, you have to be adding a quote at each point in time. Let me just change my keyboard to English. So you'll be tempted to be adding your quote every single time when you are writing your SQL query. So it's always better, best practice, to have that approach, because this is like a blueprint for our database. Before you build a house, you want to have a blueprint, your architect, okay, before you start doing your mix